Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Saturday, January 24th, 2026. Today, we are opening a file that I think for a huge chunk of the population is mentally filed away under a COVID fever dream.
That's the perfect way to put it. It feels linked to that very specific time, you know, sourdough starters wiping down your groceries.
Exactly. And this story was this cultural moment in early 2020 where the whole world just stopped. We were all inside and we all collectively watched this mullet-wearing zookeeper completely unraveled on Netflix.
It was a genuine phenomenon. It almost feels like something we all hallucinated together.
It does. We are, of course, talking about Joseph Allen Maldonado, who was born Joseph Schreibvogel, but, the entire planet knows him as Joe Exotic. And I think the temptation here, 6 years on, is to just remember the memes. The Carole Baskin song, the tiger print, everything, the jokes.
Right, to treat it as a caricature. But the sources we have laid out here today, they tell a much, much darker and honestly more complicated story.
And that's really the mission of this deep dive, isn't it? To go past that caricature. When you look at the actual factual biography from the 1980s all the way to right now, where he's sitting in a federal medical center, it's not a comedy.
No, not at all. It's really a study in escalation. It's a story about how a fascination with animals, which might have even started out genuinely, got corrupted by this desperate, all-consuming need for fame.
And how that spiraled into, a murder-for-hire plot and a 21-year prison sentence.
And we're going to cover the parts that the documentary either glossed over or that just hadn't even happened yet. I mean, we're talking about his time as a police chief.
Which is a real thing that actually happened.
A real thing. His political campaigns that ran all the way into 2024 from a prison cell, and his life right now. Because the story did not end when those credits rolled.
No. In fact, you could argue the post-conviction era, these last 5 or 6 years, are just as bizarre and just as revealing as the Tiger years. It's the aftermath.
This is the crash.
So let's rewind. Way, way back. Before the bleach, before the mullet, before any of it. We're in Garden City, Kansas, 1963. That's where Joseph Schreibvogel's life begins. But I want to jump ahead to the detail in his background that it stopped me in my tracks. The early 1980s, Joe Exotic was a cop.
It sounds like fiction, doesn't it? But it's there. It's in the public record. After his family moved down to Texas and he finished high school, Joe joined the police force in a town called Eastvale, Texas.
Okay, so what kind of town are we talking about here?
Oh, tiny. You have to understand, this was essentially a hamlet. It wasn't the Dallas PD or anything, but he was, in 1982, the chief of police. He wore a badge. He was the law.
It's just such a stark contrast to the whole outlaw, anti-establishment persona he built later on.
Completely. But this period of his life, it ends with an incident that I think is sort of the Rosetta Stone for his entire psychology. The bridge crash in 1985.
This is the turning point.
This is the pivot. In 85, he crashes his police cruiser into a concrete bridge embankment. It was a really serious wreck. But the why of it, well, that depends entirely on which version of Joe's story you're hearing at that moment.
And that's the pattern, right? Joe rewriting his own history to fit whatever narrative suits him best.
Constantly. So you have the later version, the one he told Texas Monthly in 2019. In that one, he frames it as this tragic, almost romanticized suicide attempt.
Right. This is the story where his brother Yari outs him as gay to their parents.
Exactly. And he claims his father gave him this cold handshake and said, don't come to my funeral. And so Joe, in his despair, drives his car straight into the bridge and end the pain.
Which is a very sympathetic story. It casts him as the victim, a man pushed to the brink by a cruel, homophobic family.
It creates a reason for the chip on his shoulder. It explains everything. But if you go back and look at the actual news reports from 1985, or what Joe himself was telling reporters in 1997, it's a completely different tale.
So what was the 97 version?
The 97 version was that it was a drug investigation gone bad.
Ah, the action hero version.
The action hero version. He said an unidentified car ran him off the road while he was deep undercover on a narcotics case. He was the hero cop, taken out by the bad guys.
So you have the tragic victim and the action hero. What do the facts say?
Well, investigators from New York Magazine and other outlets, they dug into this. There were no witnesses to another car. There was no official record of any deep cover drug bust in this tiny little town.
So the evidence points to
what?
A simple accident?
It points to a single car accident. Maybe he fell asleep. Maybe he just lost control. But for Joe, it can't just be a mistake. He has to build a mythology around the trauma. He has to be the main character.
Accuracy is not the priority. The story is the priority.
Precisely.
Okay, so he survives this crash, leaves law enforcement, and he moves. West Palm Beach, Florida. And this is where the animals finally enter the picture.
And it's interesting, it wasn't tigers at first. He's managing a pet store, and he has a neighbor.
Just a name.
A neighbor who worked at a local drive-through safari park. And this neighbor would bring home baby lions. You know, you have to remember, this is the mid-'80s. The regulations around exotic animals were looser.
Much looser.
So Joe holds a lion cub for the first time, and he describes it like a switch being flipped, this feeling of power or connection with this tiny apex predator. He says that exact moment set the course for the rest of his life.
So he takes that feeling, that spark, and he brings it back to Texas. He and his brother, Gerald Wayne G.W., they open a pet shop together in Arlington.
They do, in 1986. And we see another side of Joe here that becomes really crucial later, the combative activist.
He was never quiet, was he?
Never. I mean, he's hanging rainbow-striped gay pride flags in his shop window in Arlington, Texas in the mid-1980s. That was a very loud, very brave thing to do then and there.
And when the city came after him for it?
He didn't just quietly pay the fine for the sign violations. He went to the press. He called them out. He accused the city inspectors of being homophobic.
So that me against the establishment energy that was there from the very beginning, he thrives on conflict.
He absolutely does. But then the real catalyst happens. 1997. His brother, Gerald, is killed in a car accident.
This is the moment. This is where the Joe Exotic we all know really starts to take shape.
It was devastating for him. And in his grief, he makes this huge life change. Sells the pet shop, takes the insurance money, and he buys 16 acres of land out in Oklahoma. He decides he's going to build a monument.
The Gerald Wayne Exotic Animal Memorial Park.
The GW Zoo. And, you know, to be fair, in the very beginning, it really seems like it was a sanctuary.
The intentions were good, maybe?
The first animals there were actually Gerald's own pets that he left behind. It was genuinely born out of loss, a desire to honor his brother. But, and this is the fatal flaw that drives the entire story, sanctuaries are money pits.
And zoos are businesses. And Joe's terrible with money.
And that's where we get to what you could call the tiger math. Because I think people see the hundreds of tigers and they just think, wow, he loves tigers. They don't see the economic engine behind it.
Right. So he gets his first 2 tigers in 2000. And then by 2002, he has this realization.
He was working with a traveling magician for a while. And what he noticed was that, you know, people would clap for the magic tricks. But after the show, they would line up and empty their wallets for a chance to pet a tiger cub.
And that's it. That's the discovery that seals his fate.
It's the whole engine of the story. The business is cub petting.
But there's a biological problem with that business model, isn't there?
A huge one. It's like a Ponzi scheme, but with biology. You can only really use a tiger cub for public interaction for a very short window.
What are we talking, a few weeks?
Between about 8 weeks and 12 weeks old. Before 8 weeks, their immune systems are too fragile. After 12 weeks, they're too big, they're too strong. They'll bite a kid's finger off.
So you've got a 4-week window, a 1-month revenue window per animal.
Per tiger. So if your entire business is charging people $50, $100 to hold a baby, you need a constant, never-ending assembly line of new babies.
Which means you have to be breeding constantly, nonstop.
Speed breeding. You pull the cubs from the mothers the second they're born, so the mothers go back into heat faster. But then the goal comes due.
Because the babies grow up.
The babies grow up. And tigers live for 20 years in captivity. So suddenly you're sitting on 200 adult tigers, each one costing, say, $10,000 a year just to feed.
And they're generating 0 revenue. You can't pet them.
So this is why the population at the zoo exploded. He wasn't hoarding them because he loved them so much. He was hoarding them because they were the industrial waste product of his actual business.
They were spent inventory.
Exactly. And that crushing financial pressure, I mean, the sheer cost of feeding 200 giant predators, that's what leads to the horrific conditions that we read about in the federal investigation.
Let's talk about those conditions. The Walmart diet.
Yeah.
This detail really illustrates the scale of the problem.
To feed that many cats, you need, literal truckloads of meat every single week. He couldn't afford good meat, so he made a deal with a local Walmart to take all their expired meat.
And we're not talking like a day past the sell-by date.
No. We're talking about meat that was turning green, styrofoam packaging, plastic wrap, all of it just shoveled into a truck and dumped at the zoo.
And it wasn't just the tigers eating this stuff.
No. This is where it gets truly dystopian. The staff, who were often these vulnerable people he'd recruit, drifters, people fresh out of prison, He'd pay them maybe $150 a week.
So they can't afford their own groceries.
They can't. So they were eating the expired Walmart meat, too.
And the allegation that it was even used in the pizza sold to visitors.
That is the allegation, that the pepperoni on the pizza you bought at the GW Zoo concession stand might have been salvaged from that dumpster truck.
That is just, it's horrifying. You've got this cult-like compound where the people are living in squalor, eating rotten food, all to serve the ego of this one guy.
And when the Walmart meat wasn't enough, he moved on to what they call the horse solution.
This is where any claim to being an animal lover just evaporates.
It really does. He would put out ads, solicit donated horses. He'd tell people, oh, bring us your old horse. We'll give it a beautiful pasture to live out its final days.
And the reality was?
The reality was he would shoot the horse in the head the moment it got off the trailer and feed it whole to the tigers. It was just brutal pragmatism. He didn't see an animal. He saw a free 1,000-pound package of meat.
So you have this grim reality churning away in the background. But in the foreground, Joe is just desperate to be a star. He builds his own TV studio at the zoo.
Joe Exotic TV. He was basically live streaming before that was even really a thing. He'd host this nightly show where he would just rant, mostly. Rant about the government, rant about animal rights people.
And he wanted to be a country music star. The music videos, I saw a tiger. Here, kitty, kitty. We have to ask, did he actually sing those songs?
No.
They sounded too polished for that.
They were very polished. Because this is another classic Joe Exotic move. He purchased a reality he couldn't earn. He hired professional musicians, the Clinton Johnson Band, to write and record the songs for him.
So he would give them the idea, maybe?
Yeah, he might hum a melody or give them a lyrical theme like Carole Baskin killed her husband. But the actual performance, the voice you hear on those tracks, it is not Joe Exotic.
He's just lip-syncing in the video.
Just lip-syncing. He wanted the fame of being a singer without having any of the talent. It's the same pattern as the bridge crash story. It's all a performance. It's a facade.
And then he tries to attach himself to the biggest name in the animal world at the time, Steve Irwin.
He claimed he knew Steve Irwin, that they talked on the phone. There's no proof of any real friendship. Then, after Irwin died in 2006, Joe built a Steve Irwin Memorial Alligator Complex.
Which then mysteriously burned to the ground in 2015.
In a fire that was incredibly suspicious. It destroyed his TV studio, destroyed the alligator pit, and basically boiled the alligators alive in their enclosure.
Horrific.
Joe immediately blamed animal rights activists. But the sheriff, the investigators, they suspected it might have been an inside job.
For insurance money.
Either for the insurance money or, more likely, to destroy incriminating video footage and records that were stored in that studio. The case is still officially unsolved.
Okay, so the zoo is this chaotic, financially disastrous, morally bankrupt operation. But that's not a big enough stage for Joe. He decides he needs to run the country.
The political arc is something people forget the details of. They think it was all a joke.
It was a joke to the rest of us, maybe? Not to him.
Not to him at all. In 2016, he launches a campaign for president of the United States as an independent.
And did he actually get any votes?
He did. He managed to get his name on the ballot in Colorado, and nationwide, he received 962 votes.
962.
I mean, it's a tiny number, but it's not zero. Almost 1,000 people voted for him. And it gave him mainstream attention. John Oliver featured him on Last Week Tonight.
That's where Make America Exotic Again came from, right?
Yeah, that was Oliver's joke, which Joe then immediately adopted as his own serious slogan.
But he doesn't stop there. 2018, he runs for governor of Oklahoma.
This time as a libertarian.
Yeah.
And he actually does surprisingly well in the primary. He finished last, sure, but he got 664 votes. That was 18.7% of the total vote.
Almost 1 in 5 libertarians in that primary voted for the Tiger King.
It is shockingly high. And the actual Libertarian Party was horrified. They officially censored him during the campaign and then kicked him out of the party completely after his arrest. They realized he wasn't just some quirky activist. He was a genuine liability.
But not even prison could stop the political ambitions. He ran again in 2024 from his cell.
This time he filed to run for the Democratic nomination. It was, clearly a publicity stunt to try and get attention for a pardon. But the details are just wild.
Like his choice for vice president.
In 2022, he floated the idea of Andrew Tate as his running mate.
Andrew Tate, the controversial social media influencer.
Yeah, the very same.
Yeah.
And it just shows you how Joe's mind works. It makes zero political sense. Joe is an openly gay man. Tate has been accused of rampant misogyny. But it makes perfect viral sense. Joe operates in the economy of attention. policy is irrelevant.
And to top it all off, in 2025, he endorsed the Prime Minister of Australia.
Anthony Albanese. Yes, from his cell in Fort Worth, Texas. It's like he just needs to feel like he's part of the global conversation. It's a way to mentally break out of the prison walls.
Which brings us to the conflict that actually put him behind those walls, the central drama, Joe versus Carole Baskin.
The nemesis.
Now, the show framed this as this big personality clash, the Hatfields and McCoys of the big cat world. But when you look at the sources, it was really a clash of business model.
Oh, absolutely. That is the entire root of the feud. Carole Baskin's organization, Big Cat Rescue, their whole mission was to end the private ownership of big cats. And her main target was cub petting.
Specifically, the mall tours.
The mall tours? She organized these massive email campaigns to mall managers all over the country saying, do not let Joe Exotic bring his tiger cubs here. This is animal abuse.
She was going right for his wallet, cutting off his main source of cash flow.
Precisely. If he can't tour the malls, he can't make money. If he can't make money, he can't feed the 200 tigers back at the zoo. He saw her as an existential threat.
And being Joe, he didn't respond with, a reasoned debate.
No. He responded with a campaign of relentless, vicious harassment. Reading her stolen diary on his web show, flying a helicopter over her property, and, most famously, weaponizing the disappearance of her husband, Don Lewis.
Turning a missing persons case into a marketing tool.
He made music videos accusing her of feeding him to her tigers.
Yeah.
Offered a reward for information. It was obsessive. But his fatal mistake, the thing that actually brought him down legally, wasn't the harassment.
It was the trademark infringement.
The Big Cat Rescue Entertainment debacle. This was his biggest error. In 2011, he rebranded his whole traveling show to use her name, Big Cat Rescue, and a Florida phone number. He was trying to trick people into booking him.
Which is just a slam dunk lawsuit.
She sued, and she won. $1 million judgment, and Joe did not have $1 million. So that triggers the bankruptcy, and then the fraud, where he transfers the zoo's assets into his mother's name to hide them from Carole.
He was completely cornered financially.
And a cornered Joe Exotic is a very dangerous Joe Exotic. And that desperation leads directly to the murder-for-hire plot.
By 2017, he's at the end of his rope. He's been talking about wanting her dead for years, but now...
Now he puts money on the table. He offers cash to an employee named Alan Glover, and then unbelievably discusses the whole plan with a man who turns out to be an undercover FBI agent.
The sloppiness is just astounding. But I want to focus on the other charges for a second. The ones that get overshadowed by the whole hitman plot, the animal crimes.
The Lacey Act and Endangered Species Act violations. Yeah. Yes. These are really important because they cut through the animal lover persona.
He was convicted specifically for killing 5 tigers.
He shot them. Shot them in the head with a pistol to make more cage space.
And in the court documents, he referred to them as generic tigers. What does that even mean?
It's a term they use in the captive breeding world. A generic tiger is basically a mutt. It's a crossbreed between different subspecies, like a Siberian tiger crossed with a Bengal tiger.
So they have no conservation value?
0. You can't release them into the wild. You can't use them in a legitimate species survival plan at a real AZA-accredited zoo. To science, they're worthless.
And to Joe, they were just inventory.
They were adult inventory that couldn't be used for petting anymore. They were just big, expensive mouths to feed. So you dispose of them like you'd get rid of a broken piece of equipment.
That's chilling. So the trial happens in 2019. The jury hears about the hitman plot. They hear about the dead tigers.
And they convict him on everything. 2 counts of murder for hire, 8 counts of Lacey Act violations, 9 counts of Endangered Species Act violations.
Yeah.
A clean sweep.
He gets sentenced to 22 years, but then there was a resentencing in 2022. I remember his supporters were acting like he was about to be released.
It was very minor technicality. The appeals court ruled that the 2 murder for hire counts should have been grouped together as a single plot for sentencing purposes, not treated as 2 separate crimes.
So the judge recalculated, and the sentence was reduced by...
1 year.
Just 1 year.
From 22 years to 21.
Which means his current release date is scheduled for 2036. He was born in 63, so he'll be 73 years old when he gets out.
If he serves the full term, and if he survives that long.
And woven through this whole criminal saga is this incredible personal tragedy, the husbands. The documentary focused on the throuple Joe, John Finley, and Travis Maldonado.
And we have to be clear about the pattern here. It's a pattern of predation. Joe targeted very young, often straight, often vulnerable men who worked for him, men with drug problems, And he used his power, the money, the trucks, the guns, the access to drugs, to control them.
There's a massive power imbalance.
Huge. And Travis Maldonado, I mean, his story is the most heartbreaking part of this entire saga.
He's just a kid, 23.
And by all accounts, not gay. He seemed completely trapped in this bizarre world Joe had built around him. And in 2017, he's in the zoo office, he's messing with a pistol.
And he makes a fatal mistake.
He thought the gun was safe because he'd taken the magazine out. He didn't understand that there could still be a round in the chamber. And he put the gun to his head, pulled the trigger, sort of as a joke, and died instantly.
Right in front of the campaign manager, Joshua Dial.
Who was profoundly traumatized by it. And Joe's reaction to this tragedy was just so telling. It was all performance.
He held a press conference.
He started a charity in Travis's name, but then at the actual funeral, he made these bizarre, crude jokes about Travis's anatomy. It showed this complete emotional disconnect from the reality of what had happened. He was playing the part of the grieving widower.
And then, just 2 months later, he marries Dylan Passage.
Dylan was the husband who was there through the trial and the Netflix fame. They stayed together for a while, but eventually divorced in 2021. But here's the update. The part most people don't know because the cameras have moved on.
He got married again, in prison.
This is the most recent twist. While incarcerated at FMC Fort Worth, he met another inmate, a man named Jorge Marquez. They got engaged in October of 2024, and they got married in April of 2025.
So, he's married right now.
He is. But there's a catch. Jorge Marquez was released from prison in May of 2025, just 1 month after their prison wedding, and he was immediately deported to Mexico.
Wow. So Joe is married, but his husband is in a different country, and he's still locked up in Fort Worth.
It's another example of him creating these bonds, but ending up completely isolated anyway.
And how is he physically? I know there have been a lot of health scares.
It sounds like it's been pretty rough. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2021. He had to be transferred to a special medical facility in North Carolina for treatment for a while.
And he's back in Fort Worth now.
Back in Fort Worth. But he's reported other issues, immune disorders. And in late 2024, he was writing letters complaining about a massive scabies outbreak in his prison unit.
Scabies.
A parasitic skin infestation. Incredibly itchy, contagious. It just paints this picture of a life that is so far removed from the guy on the throne with the tigers. He's aging, he's sick, and he's dealing with scabies in a medical prison.
And yet, he's still trying to protect the brand. He threatened to sue a college football player.
Jordan Travis, the quarterback for Florida State. He was using the nickname Tiger King on some merchandise, and Joe, from his cell, sent a cease and desist threatening legal action. He claimed he owns the trademark to Tiger King.
It's the only asset he has left. The name itself.
The fame is all he has.
So where are we now in 2026? The zoo is gone. Carole Baskin ended up with the land, is that right?
That is the ultimate perfect irony of the entire feud. The court awarded her the land as part of the settlement for that $1 million judgment he refused to pay. She took ownership of the GW Zoo.
So the cages are all gone.
She sold the property, but she put a deed restriction on it. It can never be used as a zoo or to house exotic animals ever again.
The kingdom has literally been erased from the map.
It's just a plot of land in Oklahoma now.
There was that moment, though, in early 2021 when he was absolutely convinced he was getting out. The pardon attempt.
Oh, the Team Tiger limo. That image just says it all. They were so sure that Donald Trump was going to pardon him on his last day in office. They had a stretch monster truck limo parked and waiting outside the prison.
They had a whole team ready, hair and makeup.
Ready to get him camera ready for the press tour. And they just waited.
And waited.
They waited all day. The sun went down. The inauguration happened. Joe Biden became president. And the pardon never came. Joe stayed in his cell, and that empty limo just sat there. It's a perfect symbol for the whole story.
Delusion crashing right up against reality.
Exactly that.
Before we wrap this up, there is one last piece of his psychology that I think is fascinating. He's made statements recently that suggest, well, a change of heart.
He has. He wrote in a letter, "No animal belongs in a cage." He claims that now that he knows what it's like to be locked in a cage, the boredom, the lack of freedom, being told what to do all day, he finally understands what he did to those animals.
And he says he regrets it, that he'd never own a zoo again.
That's what he says. And that's the ultimate question with Joe Exotic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a genuine epiphany born out of his own suffering? Is he finally connecting his own pain to the pain of the tigers?
It's just another performance.
Or is he just a master manipulator, saying exactly what he thinks a parole board or the public wants to hear? He knows redemption is a powerful narrative. He knows remorse is a good legal strategy.
With him, you just can't ever seem to find the line between the man and the performance.
And I think that fundamental ambiguity is why, even now, we're still talking about him. He's a villain, he's a victim, he's a caricature, and he's a tragedy all at the same time.
The king in a cage. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. We have unpacked the police years, the bizarre economics of the cub petting trade, the political campaigns, and the pretty grim reality of his life today.
It's a much heavier story when you pull back the curtain on the memes. It's a story about the real cost of fame and attention.
It really is. If you want to see the timelines, the actual court documents from the Lacey Act charges, or even photos from his time as a police chief, we'll have links in the show notes. But be warned, it is a very, very deep rabbit hole.
It is indeed.
You are now well informed. Thanks for listening.